Hi there, this is Dr. Embody. We're going to take a look at Project 7. Just as a note, I did a little separate thing, separate video on sorting, so I'm going to leave that out of this. So what do we have here? Well, we got a bunch of baseball players, and we're going to calculate statistics on it. And to help you out, we have given you a small file, just with whatever this is, 20 lines in it or something, and it's a bunch of it's like the name, the team, hits, runs, etc. And notice everything is separated by colons, semicolons. All right. So that's an important part of this. And what are all the fields? Well, we give you a list of that. Over here we have player's name is first, and then team identifier, and so on. Now, whenever I have a file, the first thing I do is just see if I can open it. So I'll open the file, and it's Major League Baseball .part.text, and let's go through it. For line in my file, print the line. All right, so we see, we get the lines. It kind of looks like the other stuff that was in the document. But now this is a section on lists, and so whenever we have something like this, we want to make a list out of the line using this very nice. Well, first of all, let's strip out the character turns at the end. It's always a handy thing to do. But the split is one of the most useful methods that you will have in Python, because it takes a string and it splits it into a list. And if you leave it blank like that, it will split on white space. But in our case, all our items are separated by colons, and so we give the colon character. And now let's split each of those lines and see what it looks like. So if you take a look, you see that it started out as some of these are a little long. Let's see if we can. So when I just did prints of the lines, we see that we have a bunch of things separated by colons, and then I made them into a list, and so I have a list of strings. So there's a name, and then there's a team, and there's something like at bats or whatever. But in any case, and notice these are all still strings, and I'm probably going to want to deal with them as numbers, so we're going to have to deal with that later on, and we're going to deal with these as individual things. So let's take a look at our program, at our description here. And so this is at item 0, item 1, item 2, item 3, item 4. So there's item 5 is hits. So if I wanted to look at the hits, I could come back and say, all right, let's see. So I've split this off. So what that's in, so the hits are in my list at position 5. All right, and so now let's print it out, and let's include the hits just to see how we're doing here. Notice how I'm developing this in pieces. Okay, so now when I printed it out, I see that I have, like in this case, there's 160, so there's the 0 position, the 1, the 2, the 3, the 4, and the 5. There's the 160, the next one is 184, and so on. So I can now, I can go through my file, I can check, I can print out any of these individual elements. In this case, I did the hits. I find it handy to do it with all of them. The next thing that you want to do, and here's a pattern, right? We always have patterns. And so with strings, what did we do with strings? We started with an empty string, and then we loop through and add onto the string. when we did numbers, we'd start like with a count of 0 and add 1 onto the numbers. The pattern with lists, and we'll see this patterns with other structures, is we start with an empty one, and you'll use a better name than X. And what I'm going to do now is just take my list, my X, and add on to it. So I'm going to take X dot append. Notice it's not X equals X dot append, and I'm going to append my line list on there, and afterwards I'm just going to print it. And so let's see what that looks like. Now when I printed this, notice what I got. I got one list, X, and notice the double square brackets here. So I have a list, that guy corresponding to this guy on the other end. And in between, what do I have? I've got a bunch of little lists. So here's a list of the first guy with all his information in it. His name, his team, blah, blah, blah. And then we get the next guy here. And then the next guy. And so on all the way down until we get to Sanchez here on the end. So what do I have? I have a list of lists. And now I have all my players in there. And if I want to look at any one in particular, I can do so. So for example, playing around with this in the shell here, if I say print X, that gives me the whole thing. But if I say something like print X of 0, give me the first guy, there's the first guy. So I can now use that as a collection. So now I have a collection of all the players, and I can do things with that. Now, of course, we do ask you to make create some functions. A logical one to do is to take this as opening a file, and so you can just take the whole thing and indent it. That's one of your choices at the top. And and so then what do you need to do? Now you've got that working. You can say def, I'll call it X, blah blah blah, and then at the bottom I need to return something. Return something in there. So now I've taken my file opening. I can open the file and create this list of players, and then once I got that working, I can put it into a function, and away we go. And there's some other functions that are handy to have. So for example, look back into these formulas that we have to collect. Let's not look at these right now. Let's just look at singles. Right. And how can I do this? Well, I can just do this as return that value in a function. So what does that mean the function has to be? Well, I need a name of a function. I'll call it X. You can come up with a better name of that. But what does this function need? Well, this function needs hits, doubles, triples, and home runs. And now I have a function. Right? As simple as that. There is a function that calculates singles. And guess what? You do the exact same thing with these guys. Don't forget to consider this about what happens if your at bats is 0. But there you go. So now we've seen how to sort of build a list of lists and how to get the individual elements out of there. The final piece of this project is that you now need an interactive way to deal with, to handle your all this data. And so we have a bunch of commands, quit, help, input, team, report, and so on. And so what do you need? Well, you're going to need to input a command, input, give me something, input, blah blah blah. right? And then what are you going to do? Well, we don't know how many commands are going to be in there, and so I need, while my command is not equal to something, you can figure that out. It ought to be obvious when you look at this list. And now the very first thing I do is I say something in here like, oh, well, first of all, what's your standard pattern for a while loop? We ask for a command, we have my suite of things, and at the end I ask for my command again. Give me a command. All right, so there's my pattern. And inside of that, what am I going to do? I'm going to say something like, if my command is help, for right now, I'll just do print help. And I'll go through each of those commands and just print it. Else if my command is input, print input. And in that way you can build up this structure, and guess what? Each of these, again, because we're dealing with functions, so what do we have for a function? Well, that will be my opening of an input file. And I can actually write, you may find it nice to write functions for each of these. So for example, actually it turns out that if you're clever, you can actually write one function that handles all three of these. That's what I did. And by the way, you'll want to check out the sort video to do that. So there's basic outline of how to approach this program. Good luck with it.